Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Top IG Professional Development session. Today, we're very pleased to host Idee Edalatishams. I'm hoping that I pronounced your last name correctly. The topic of today's webinar is using spoken corpora to teach pronunciation. And we're starting a bit late due to a technical issue. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and then if we have a little bit of time left, I will announce other CoTACS business. We're really happy that Ide accepted our request, our invitation. She's an applied linguist working at the intersection of corpus linguistics and pronunciation, with a focus on L2 speech and multilingual speakers' intelligibility. And she's received her PhD from our friends at Iowa State University.
Thanks everyone for your patience. And thank you all for inviting me to do this webinar. As Patrick mentioned, I'm going to be talking about using spoken corpora, and particularly one spoken corpora that I developed to teach pronunciation with a focus on prosodic issues or prosodic features like prominence, pausing, and information structure. All right, just a little bit about myself to build the context for you guys. I started my PhD in 2014, and I started teaching or continued teaching ESL courses and composition, and then oral communication courses for international teaching assistants at Iowa State University. And then I moved on to become a communication consultant because I was really interested in working with individual learners on their individual needs. And I moved on to the Center for Communication Excellence at Iowa State. We developed a speaking consultation program there, where a big part of it was pronunciation instruction. And I've been researching pronunciation since then and worked as the faculty ESL specialist at George Mason University for a couple of years. So I have been involved with different populations of multilingual students or ESL students, which is a different term. And I've been very interested in using technological tools like Corpora to help them with their intelligibility, comprehensibility in their speaking. So today I'll be talking about spoken corpora in general and their use in pronunciation teaching, and then introduce the corpus of teaching assistant classroom speech, or CoTACS, and give you a little bit of information about how it can be used for prominence and pausing and information structure and the interactions between those concepts for teaching students for in your classroom or for your students' practice at home. And yeah, so I'll get started with giving you a little bit of information about what a corpus is in case anyone is not familiar with corpora in linguistics. They are collections of texts, and by text here we mean spoken or written. And they are usually naturally occurring language. They're large in size, large enough to be representative of specific features that we're interested in studying. And they're searchable. I mean, these days, that doesn't matter anymore because everything is digital and searchable. Um, and in language teaching in general, beyond pronunciation, there have always been needs for teaching materials developed based on authentic language and reference tools. And corpora have been used as tools for analyzing language in the classroom, for identifying teaching targets, for creating data-driven learning materials. So at different levels of teaching, they have been used. But in the classroom, do teachers actually use corpora, especially spoken corpora? The answer is no, almost no, because a lot of teachers are not comfortable with using Corpora or with technological tools. A lot of them may not be familiar with corpus tools at all and search techniques. So it's not easy to like just give them a corpus and ask them to use it in their teaching. But research has shown that needs analysis, material development, and assessment using corpus tools have been very successful. For example, Shelley Staples used or developed an ESP pronunciation curriculum for internationally educated nurses. They use pictures produced in speech analysis software along with audio files, and they saw measurable improvements in learners' pronunciation for pragmatic purposes. And Chen and Han, they used a phonologically annotated corpus of Mandarin composed of read and free speech to identify common difficulties and developed a platform for L1 Cantonese learners of Mandarin with perception and production activities using phonologically annotated corpus data. And it helped them identify patterns of pronunciation errors. These are just some of the examples of using Corpora in teaching that have been successful. But it's important to know how a corpus is developed. So sometimes people refer to any like collection of text as a corpus. Um, in the corpus linguistics um, field or school that I come from, there are certain steps and there are very many levels of complicated processes for developing a corpus. This is a simplified version where you establish a research objective and design at the beginning and define the target domain and population, and then design the corpus, collect the sample, annotate the corpus based on the features you're interested in having represented in the corpus. Then you evaluate the target domain representativeness, which is a whole process by itself, and evaluate the target linguistic representativeness. So if you're interested, for example, in my corpus, when I was interested in prominence, I had to evaluate the frequency of prominence patterns that happened in the speech, which is throughout the speech. So that was not a problem. But in many other corpora that are developed, it's important to know that the features you're interested in and the research question you have is actually represented in the corpus. And then steps 3 to 5 can be repeated as many times as needed, and then you report and the corpus is ready for research, for teaching, and other uses. Now, there are a lot of spoken corpora out there. You might have heard about some of these, and there is a wide variety of spoken corpora in terms of whether they do have their audio files available, whether they are recorded in like real life situations or they're read speech, and a lot of other features. I'll just throw out some of these names to make you familiar with some of them in case you're interested in exploring them further. The British National Corpus is a very large one. London Lund Corpus has some of, or maybe all of its spoken files, especially the second version, available. Muscle is a multilingual corpus of second language speech. Let me make this smaller so I don't have to move it around all the time. Okay. SEEP is developed at Penn State. It has videos and it is recorded in the classrooms, Corpus of English for academic and professional purposes, and some prosodic annotations. The Speech Accent Archive is one that's famous, and some of you may be familiar with it from George Mason University. It is read speech, though, so there's a certain text that's given to the speakers, and it's a large collection focusing on accents of the speakers. Speechbox is a platform that includes or hosts a lot of these corpora, so you can explore that if you're interested in learning about other corpora as well. And I just threw out my case there too because it's spoken language and it's a spoken corpus that has been used a lot, but I believe the speech files are available through TalkBank, and it's not quite easy on the platform itself to get them. So I was aware of all these corpora, and I was interested in studying teaching assistants language, especially multilingual teaching assistants who don't speak English as their first language. So I developed the corpus of teaching assistant classroom speech as part of my dissertation. And my research question was, how do patterns of prosodic features, prominence, tone units, and pauses compare between native speakers of American English, who were TAs, and ITAs, which is international teaching assistants? And I defined the target domain as classroom speech by TAs from different L1 backgrounds, teaching courses in a variety of disciplines, and used Egbert et al.'s framework for corpus representativeness and domain considerations and distribution considerations, which domain considerations basically means whether the full range of text types are included in the corpus, For example, there are classes that were like lab sessions or studio sessions, and then there are lectures, and then there are other types of courses. And I made sure that there are examples of each type of course and each discipline represented in the corpus. And distribution considerations refers to whether the corpus includes enough data on the linguistic variables of interest, which for me were prosodic features that are present throughout the speech. So a little bit of information about the corpus itself before I show you the website and the files. The corpus includes speech from 30 speakers. 10 of them were speakers of American English, which is why the abbreviation is ATA. And 20 of them were international teaching assistants from various language backgrounds, including Farsi, Chinese, etc. 11 of them were female, 19 identified as male, and they had a range of TA-ship experience, came from different disciplines and different class types. Now, the corpus includes 2 files for each speaker. There is an audio file in WAV format, and there is a text file in PROT text grid format. I'm curious to know how many of you may not be familiar with PROT. Let me get my window back. Is there anyone who's not used prod at all before? Can I just see a show of hands or type in the chat? Okay. Okay.
I'm going to guess that a lot of people need some background info here.
Okay, great. That's very good to know. Awesome. Thank you very much, everybody. So I'll show you prod and the prod window and kind of walk you through the steps you need to work with the corpus files. And so what a text grid file is it's basically a text file, but it can be used in this specific software that's called prot. And in another webinar, somebody asked me what prot means, and I think it's a Dutch word that means speak. So it's a proper name, proper actually meaning appropriate name for the software. It's a speech analysis software that's widely used by people in speech analysis and in linguistics. Sorry, okay, here we go. So, so each speaker, the 30 speakers that we have an audio file and a text file that need to be opened together in the speech analysis software PROT for you to be able to see the annotations and the text and the audio and everything. Each audio file is about 54 minutes long. Some of them are shorter, some of them are longer, depending on the class. And there is orthographic transcriptions and prosodic annotations on parts of each file. For tone units, which is the same as thought groups, if you're familiar with that term, prominence or sentence stress, and pauses. And they are done based on Brazel's discourse intonation framework. And once you open the audio file and the text file together in prod, this is an image that you might get. It includes all these levels of annotations and the audio or the visual representation of the audio. And I took a screenshot here just to show you, and I'll walk you through what all of this information is, because it's a lot and it may not be needed for your purposes, but some of the parts that are needed, I'll emphasize more. The blue lines, I mean, in the software, you're able to make them shown or make them disappear, and there are other features that you can make show or disappear as well. I'll show you in a little bit, but these ones show intonation a little bit. So the parts that are higher are usually higher pitch. The lower ones are lower pitch. But let's get to the tiers. These are called tiers in prod, like each of these, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, 4, etc. And in this corpus, the first tier, as you can see, shows the transcription at the word level. So it's aligned with the speech. If this says and, this part is and when you listen to the audio file. And the second tier is phones, which is basically the sounds transcribed, I think in alphabet, which is an alphabet for transcribing phones. The third syllable or the third tier is syllables. These points, they're showing the vowels in each of the syllables. So there are as many syllables in this tier as there are these, like there are dots, if that makes sense. The yellow tier here, it's yellow because it's selected. It was selected when I screenshotted it. Is the transcription, the orthographic plain transcription, and this is probably what you need most to look at when you listen to the audio. And the next one is the same text, but it has some annotations. As you can see, some letters are in capital, which shows prominence, and there are some slashes, which shows the end of the tone unit or thought group. If a student is talking, there would be text here. There would be their transcription of their speech would be here. If there are any like other things happening in the classroom, like somebody, I don't know, closing the door or writing on the board, there would be a note in the comments tier. So the main tier to look at is this one. And I'm going to play the audio for this segment of speech just so you get a sense of what it sounds like. This is a native speaker teaching a linguistics class.
And I want to start our class today by asking you what your understanding of empirical research is.
As you can see, or as you heard, the words wanna and are and your were made prominent by the speaker as well. He said them with higher pitch and a little bit more length and volume. I'll play it one more time.
And I want to start our class today by asking you what your understanding of empirical research is.
Okay. So just to give you a little bit of information about what the framework included, it talks about, or it has four systems, the Brazel's intonation, discourse intonation framework. It talks about four systems: tone units, which mark segments of speech with sustained pitch and prominence patterns; prominence, which marks information as salient through high pitch, syllable lengthening, etc.; key and termination, which have to do with pitch. They help mark new given information, contrast, emphasis, addition, or reformulation; and then tone, which marks the common ground between the speaker and the listener. Usually we refer to it as rising and falling and level tones. In this corpus, we specifically focus on tone units and prominence. There's no annotations for key, termination, or tone choice. And as you know, prominence interacts with information structure, where new information is marked salient or contrastive information as well. And given information, old information, which doesn't need to get the focus, they are already mentioned in the previous discourse or implicitly mentioned based on universal knowledge. They are not marked as prominent. So going back to the example before, I just want to show you the high points, the prominent points in the blue markups here. And these are aligned with the words that are marked with capital here. I want to start our class today with what your understanding of empirical research is. I'll pause here to see if anybody has any questions so far, just about the corpus, because I know this is a lot of information and it might not be easy to grasp immediately. And then we'll move on to show the corpus and how to get the files. Prominence is syllable stress. Prominence is sentence stress. So stress is usually referred to as word stress and sentence stress. The syllable or the vowel in a word that gets the stress is the stressed syllable, and the word or syllable in a sentence that gets the stress is called prominence, if that makes sense. And the corpus is free, yes.
I have a question. Were the recordings human transcribed or machine transcribed?
Very good question. Human transcribes, lots of research assistants helped throughout the years. Okay, why was the pitch movement in asking not marked as prominent? That's a very good question because a lot of these, so I don't know if the question is referring to the speaker, why he didn't mark it as prominent, or if the annotation is not marking it as prominent. The annotation. Okay, so the annotations are also human, done by human beings, and a lot of it is perceptive. And the annotators, actually listen to the audio and they decided that it's prominent or not. It depended on their understanding. A lot of the features that we could get information about in prod were used to decide, but a lot of them are also considered subjective. Yeah, Marcia is responding about why the speaker didn't mark it as prominent, and that is a very good explanation. Okay, I think we can move on to the rest of the presentation just to give you more time to play with the corpus itself. Let me get this last question too. So syllable stress is like the noun and verb senses of record and record, yes. And prominence is the difference between no thank you and no thank you. Yes, exactly. That's a very good way to put it. All right, so pronunciation teaching, when it's corpus informed, it allows you to do a lot of things. You can use it at the level of like introducing pronunciation features to language learners. Like if you're teaching word stress, you can get examples from the corpus and just show the examples and compare different ways of saying the same thing to students and explain the details and everything. And because the audio and transcription and prosodic annotations are available, you can basically pick any feature you want to talk about and basically talk about that in your classes using excerpts of speech from the corpus. You can use the excerpts or segments of speech also for perception focus activities. Learners can be presented with the speech and asked to mark thought groups, prominences, pauses, and assess the intelligibility, identify mispronunciations. They can also be asked to produce or practice mimicking a speaker with a focus on certain pronunciation features. For example, if somebody has issues with their prominence or with certain segmentals, you can choose those features from the data in the corpus and get examples from the corpus and use it with that student to help them improve in that feature. And you can also focus on certain L1s, get like speakers who speak Chinese, for example, and get their data and try to identify how speech productions by speakers of Chinese, for example, may show patterns that interfere with listeners' understanding, or identify elements of instructional speech like different speech acts or characteristics of speech that may differ based on different contexts, like if they're teaching, if they're giving a lecture versus if they're like interacting with the students in a lab setting. Now we'll take a look at the corpus itself, and you can go to www.spokencorpus.com or scan this QR code and access the corpus. This is the main web page. Let me make sure. Okay. I'm not really good at doing this share thing. I want to make sure that you can see my page, but I think you can. So CoTACS main page includes information about, let me zoom in a little bit, about the corpus and what it includes. It has information about the domain analysis and corpus design if you're interested in learning about the development of the corpus. And it has a table that lists all the speakers, their discipline that they were teaching in, the course topic, level, their first language, the first 10 or the ATAs are English speakers, obviously, and the last 20 are speakers of different languages, and the type of class they were teaching, and the length of the audio recordings. And if you go to the top and click on data, that's where the data is available. ITA speech is separate from ATA speech. Let's say you're interested in ITA 1 or, yeah. If you're interested in ITA 1, you just go ahead and click on the column with the red files. You click on ITA 1. It opens another page and it opens a player like this. You can listen to the file here, but you can't see the annotations, obviously. So you go ahead and click on download and save it wherever you want. Download anyway and save it to your desired folder. And you have to also download the corresponding text grid file for the same ITA. So I downloaded ITA1.wave. Now I download ITA1.textgrid. Click on download again and save it to the same folder. Then you'll have to open prot. And you can download prot by just searching prot for your system, for Windows and for Macintosh. It's a pretty easy process. You just click on the DMG and it downloads it for you, and then you install it on your computer. And once you open the software, I'll close this one for now. It opens another window that you can close. It's the picture window. You don't really need that. And then this is called the object window. The prot objects window includes, you don't really have to full screen it, but it includes a blank white section here. Then you have to click on open and read from file and open the text grid file that you just downloaded. So once again, for the text grid file, you read from file and then you choose the text grid file and open it. And for the audio file, because it's large, you have to click on open long sound file. So there are two different ones for the text grid file and for the audio file. Open long sound file, click on the audio file and open. Okay, and then they will show up here. Now I have 2 additional files loaded here, but you only need ITA1 and then hold Shift or Command down and click on ITA1 text grid. So now I have selected the text grid and the long sound file for the same speaker. Now click on View and Edit, and you will see something like this. If you scroll to the left, there is a lot of data. There are minutes and minutes, if not hours of data in each speaker, right? And you can scroll from the bottom too. I'll scroll back to the very beginning of the file. Okay, this is similar to what we were looking at, but you have to zoom in to look at a specific sentence. Most of the time they're like kind of like merged together because it's zoomed out a little bit too much. And the zoom features are down here in the bottom left corner. If you click on in, it will zoom in for you. You can zoom in as much as you want. And if you click on out, it will zoom out, obviously. If you click inside one of these segments, for example, this one, and it becomes yellow when you select it. And click on cell here in the zoom section, it zooms out to the selection. It opens up the whole selection that you have. Did someone have a question?
No, I coughed. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, you're good.
I wasn't muted.
You're good. Yeah, I don't see the video, so I can't tell. All right, and then once the selection is zoomed in, if you want to zoom out again, you click on out and it zooms back out and shows you more context. Now, let's say you found one segment of speech that you're interested in working with a student with. Let's say it's this one. I'm going to play it.
Yeah. The average score for this test is
Okay. I don't know if this is a good example. I'll just look for another one. Okay. Let's choose this one.
Friday. Until all the makeups are done, I can
And then the next segment would be this one.
grade those.
So she's making pauses in the middle of a tone unit, as you can see. Let's say I'm interested in getting this segment of speech to talk about pausing in the middle of a tone unit with my students. To click or to select a section, you can click within these lines or between these lines. These dark blue lines are called boundaries. So if you click between two boundaries, you select that whole segment of speech between those boundaries. If I click here, I will be selecting the pause here. And if you want to select more than two intervals, so each part between the boundaries is called an interval. If I want to select this interval and this interval together, I'll have to hold down Shift or Command and select as many intervals as I want. Now the whole thing is marked with yellow, which means they're selected. And now you can go to File, Save Selected Sound as WAV file, and save it to your downloads. I'll have to change the name because I'll call it IT1 excerpt and save it. And save. This is a new version and I'm not seeing the option for text grid, but I'll tell you in a few minutes, I'll find it. So you have the option to download this segment of the text grid as well. And then you can open those, that like small segment of speech in prod with nothing before it and nothing after it, just that segment. And it's a smaller file, it's lighter and it's not difficult to open. You can upload it to your Canvas or whatever system you use for your students and have them listen to it. And let's see if I'm forgetting anything. I'll close this one. Okay. Well, I don't need to cancel this. I'll go to the website again just to show you the different parts of it. Okay, here we go. So this part of the website, the data includes all the data, and that's it. And there is a little page for research and a little page with activities for teaching. How should I use CoTACS in my class? How can I have different activities? And some examples of activities are listed here too. And I'll give you a few examples as we talk as well. Perception activities are very easy to do with data from CoTACS. You can ask your students to identify prominence in a segment of speech and then discuss its impact on meaning. I'll give you a handout with more a step-by-step kind of guidelines for these activities as well. The goal of this activity can be to understand prominence placement and tell them about what it means to say something more loudly with higher pitch and higher length, and its role in creating a collaborative environment as they're talking. And another activity could involve also production as well as perception. Students can examine and discuss the impact of prominence placement on listener understanding and practice placing prominence on the same speech, so like repeating after the speaker as well. And I'll skip these examples. Okay, this one is a good one because I think it's also useful to use non-native speech. Non-native doesn't mean it's not understandable, but sometimes um, speakers of languages that are more syllable timed, not stress timed, they have a more monotonous way of speaking. For example, this speaker speaks Farsi as their first language, and they are placing emphasis on a lot of these words that don't need to be prominent. I'll play the file for you.
So I'm going to show how they're equal.
So she's making so, I'm, show, and how as prominent, and it might make it difficult for the listener. So you can use an example like this and talk with your students about how it might impact understanding or how it may not. A lot of these files or speakers are good examples of how someone with an accent is also completely comprehensible and intelligible, and there's no problem with having an accent. A lot of students are worried about having an accent, and this is a good way to talk about how it does not necessarily interfere with comprehension. And sorry. And another activity can be about intelligibility versus accentedness, which is what I already just talked about. They can transcribe. You can have them listen to a segment of audio without giving them the transcription and ask them to transcribe what they hear and help them understand that intelligibility is independent from accentedness. And there are a lot of other activities that can be developed, focusing on segmental features, suprasegmental features like tone and pitch contour, rhythm, and word stress, and any other linguistic feature, basically, because these are real life examples. It does not have to be, you don't have to do much in addition to what's already there to get examples and use whatever examples you want to describe the features you want. And yeah. And there's a chapter in case you're interested in reading more about using CoTACS in teaching. You can scan this QR code or find the chapter. And the corpus can be accessed again at spokencorpus.com or using the QR code. And that's it. I'll stop sharing my screen. It's really hard not to see your faces. Okay. I felt like I was talking to nobody, but
We
it's
were
good to.
all here. I was here. Thank you so much, Ida. For the sake of our members who, or our participants who might be new to Pratt, I was wondering if you could go back to one of the sample views again and maybe show us how prominence is expressed both by intensity and pitch in Pratt. So how we could look at a certain word in your transcript and then see how the pitch pattern and the intensity in the WAV file express the said prominence.
Yeah, sure. I opened another speaker right now. Let me find a good example in a second. Okay. And when you say intensity, do you want me to show the intensity markups on Patrick?
I mean that's nice, but at least the just pointing to the sound file, I think, because it.
Yeah.
But yeah, intensity would be nice too.
All right. So let me share my screen. Okay. So, oh, sorry. Here we go. So here's another example. This is by an American English native speaker, and I'm going to play it out. I just found this. I hope it's a good example.
Yeah, we can split it up, right? Because the Laplacian form of two things added together is just.
It's a long example. Let me see if I can find a smaller one. Okay, this is a math class, so a lot of the prominences are very clear in when they're talking about like formula.
Minus 2 e to the minus t cosine of 3t.
As you can see, like -2, e to the -t, so it's emphasizing and marking these letters in numbers prominent because they're important in the formula. And so a lot of the times these blue lines may not exactly do what they're supposed to do, especially when the speaker is writing on the board, like in this example. But you can sometimes refer to them, and sometimes the intensity is okay. I think these gray ones are intensity markers, right? No, the green ones are intensity. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about how you can make these shown or disappear, because it becomes too much when it's not needed. Okay, this is the spectrogram, which I can make disappear so it's easier to see the intonation lines. I'm going to use this example just because it's
Well, what's the first thing that we can do with this?
this one.
Well, what's the first thing that we can do with this?
Okay, so this one goes higher. It can or cannot show the intonation necessarily, but intensity, you can also make it shown with these lines, and you can see it's going higher. Again, these are not like very clear markings, but they can be referred to sometimes as I think, Patrick, what you were talking about was also this. Again, I can't see your face, so let me see.
Yes, that's what I meant by just the sound file, because I
Okay.
think I think that is the same thing as intensity, just expressed differently.
Yeah, so these ones, when they're like bigger and bolder and more black, they show intensity and higher pitch and higher volume and a lot of other things, higher frequencies. But they can basically tell you where the speaker is putting more emphasis on words. And when there's a pause, there's nothing in the waves, actually. You can see them. And there are a lot of things you can explore with prod. Sometimes there's too much. There are a lot of YouTube tutorials if you're interested in learning more about them. But with this corpus, you can refer to the annotations in the tone unit here. For example, Laplace here is marked with capital, which means the speaker has set it with prominence. And I'm sorry I didn't have a good example to show you. A lot of the times, like I said, speakers are more monotonous, and sometimes there is background noise, so there are not a lot of like clear blue lines that can show intonation. But a lot of the times you can also refer to these markups as well. One other thing that I think is important to show in prod is how to play. And there is usually yeah, there are 3 gray cream lines or bars at the bottom. If you click on the middle one, it will play the visible part, which is the part that you can see. If you click on the bottom one, it's total duration of the whole file, which sometimes it doesn't even work because it's a very long file. And if you click on the top one, it breaks it down based on what you have selected. For example, if you select this section and you click on this, it will play from here to here. And to select again, you need to click in this part, not on the text. You click here and then you hold shift down or you drag up to the next point you want your selection to end. Is there anything else that I need to explain about prot?
Thank you so much. That was a very thorough way of answering my question. I appreciate it, and I would like to open the floor to our participants' questions. Please unmute yourself and ask, or raise your hand, or write them in the chat. We have a question from Seth.
Hello, hi.
Mhm. Hi.
I Well, thank you very much for the presentation. It's quite informative and engaging, and I think it's a really important process. Now that I see the examples from Pratt, I remember being introduced to it some years ago. It's an earlier version. It was before the pandemic. But as I recall, we were, how shall I say this? The logistics of using it were so uh, predominant that we were kind of talking about how it seems like the whole experience was really just the logistics of putting it into operation. And the uh, teaching function ended up being secondary, and it wasn't supposed to be that way. But I think again, I think it was just so the procedure, the processes, the logistics were rather challenging. It may not be that way anymore, and it looks very useful, but I just wonder if you might be able to comment on that.
Yeah, for sure. Do you remember if it was more with like how to get started on it or how to use it with like a certain speech file?
I think it was probably a little bit of both, how to
Okay.
start it, and then maybe, I think both, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's definitely not the most user-friendly speech analysis software. Well, speech analysis software are not user-friendly at all because they're not designed for use with students or in classrooms. But one thing that I would say is, and I've been trying to say that here as well, is you don't need to know anything or everything about it. You just need to be able to use the features that you want to use. So being able to play and being able to understand the lines when they actually make sense and being able to click between the tiers. I mean, I don't know probably like 60, 70% of it. I don't know what it does because there are a lot of things you can do with it. So you don't need to know everything about it to be able to use it. And I would try to focus on getting students to play the audio file, getting them to see what's going on in the annotations, and whatever feature of interest you have, you can just talk about those features. Ellen, do you have a comment on this?
I do have a comment. Like many of you, I've dabbled with Pratt, and there was a very good workshop on it at the annual pronunciation conference. However, the thing I'd like to say is that I've found that students learn well from schematics. And this acts as a schematic. They can actually see length and they can also see pitch. And like many of my students, like they're engineers, and just seeing a schematic is really helpful to them. So you wouldn't have to use that much of Pratt, and you could have them imitate looking at the sentence and looking at how it was recorded. So I like to think of it as a good way of having a schematic.
Yeah, great idea. Another thing that I think is important, especially with this corpus, is to get a segment of speech and make that available to them, not the whole file, because that's too much and it's long and it does not make sense. And I'll make sure to get the instructions on how to extract, because it's updated and I've forgotten, unfortunately, on how to extract a segment of speech, and I'll send it to Patrick to send to everyone. But it's important to get whatever sentence or very short segment of speech that you choose that's relevant to your topic of interest. Just give the students that and give them very clear directions on how to use prod. Before I forget, I'll drop the handout that I had in the chat. It's just more steps to the activities I mentioned.
Idee, thank you. Whatever handouts you have or access to your PDF, your slides, I will definitely send it out to all the registrants afterwards. As you probably know, there are maybe 50% of us who actually hear in in person synchronously, but there are those who will be logging into our YouTube to see the recording, and I'll let them also have a hand on your handout.
Great. Sounds good.
And I would like to thank you so much for this very informative presentation. I was really inspired by a part of it that I saw at a conference and have been playing around with with Pratt and listening to the recordings that you have on your website ever since. And I would really like to encourage all of our participants to give it a shot because the learning curve is steep, but actually, I think, especially when we find really nice samples of speech, every features like volume, like stress, like intonation, can be clearly shown to students based on these based on the metrics that you've identified, or based on the different features of Pratt. And I have been able to use this software with my students as well. So please don't fear Pratt, everyone. And yes, again, thank you so much to everyone for attending our webinar. I wanted to remind you that we do have a Padlet. I will paste in links to all of our channels in the chat in a second. But we have a Padlet where you can find information about our group, the purpose of TOP, as well as recordings of past professional development webinars that we've hosted and communication about our upcoming events. You can find us on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch said recordings directly. And we do have a mailing list as well, where we will send you a reminder straight to your email every month about these monthly webinars that we host. We promise not to spam you. So again, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Idee. And we'll see you all next month for another top IG pronunciation webinar.
Yes.
Okay, and Barb, I see your note here. I'll check in to make sure there's a way to do that.
Okay,
Could I make a quick suggestion? I just want to mention Margie's suggestion of a hands-on Pratt workshop would be great, but if you do it, don't do it in Zoom. Use Google Meet so everybody can share their screens. Thank you.
Well, okay, that's a great idea. I'd like to also say that our next webinar is going to be on mobile-assisted pronunciation training for children, and it will be delivered by Professor Kang-Ah Lee from South Korea. And we were able to meet with her at the previous Pronunciation in Second Language Learning and Teaching conference. And so we've invited her to present for us in February. So go ahead and sign up for that webinar if you haven't already done so.